China, officially the People's Republic of China (PRC), is a unitary sovereign state in East Asia and the world's most populous country, with a population of around 1.404 billion. Covering approximately 9.6 million square kilometers, 3.7 million square miles, it is the world's second largest state by land area and third or fourth largest by total area. Governed by the Communist Party of China, it exercises jurisdiction over 22 provinces, 5 autonomous regions, 4 direct-controlled municipalities, Beijing, Tianjin, Shanghai, and Chongqing, and the special administrative regions Hong Kong and Macau, also claiming sovereignty over Taiwan. China emerged as one of the world's earliest civilizations in the fertile basin of the Yellow River in the North China Plain. For millennia, China's political system was based on hereditary monarchies, or dynasties, beginning with the semi-legendary Qing Dynasty. Since then, China has expanded, fractured, and reunified numerous times. In 1912, the Republic of China (ROC) replaced the last dynasty and ruled the Chinese mainland until 1949, when it was defeated by the Communist People's Liberation Army in the Chinese Civil War. The Communist Party established the People's Republic of China in Beijing on the 21st of September 1949, while the ROC government retreated to Taiwan with its present de facto capital in Taipei. Both the ROC and PRC continue to claim to be the legitimate government of all China, though the latter has more recognition in the world and controls more territory. Since the introduction of economic reforms in 1978, China's economy has been one of the world's fastest growing. As of 2016, it is the world's second largest economy by nominal GDP and largest by purchasing power parity (PPP). China is also the world's largest exporter and second largest importer of goods. China is a recognized nuclear weapons state and has the world's largest standing army and second largest defense budget. The PRC is a member of the United Nations, as it replaced the ROC as a permanent member of the UN Security Council in 1971. China is also a member of numerous formal and informal multilateral organizations, including the WTO, APEC, BRICS, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, SCO, the BCIM and the G20. China is a great power and a major regional power within Asia, and has been characterized as a potential superpower. Names the English word China is first attested in Richard Eden's 1555 translation of the 1516 Journal of the Portuguese explorer Duarte Barbosa. The demonym, that is, the name for the people, an adjectival form, Chinese, developed later on the model of Portuguese Chines and French Chinois. Portuguese China is thought to derive from Persian Chin, and perhaps ultimately from Sanskrit China. China was first used in early Hindu scripture, including the Mahabharata, 5th century BCE, and the Laws of Manu, 2nd century BCE. In 1655, Martino Martini suggested that the word China is derived from the name of the Qin dynasty, 221 to 206 BC, a proposal supported by many later scholars. Although there are also a number of alternative suggestions, the official name of the modern state is the People's Republic of China. The shorter form is China, Zhongguo, from Zhong and Guo, a term which developed under the Zhou dynasty in reference to its royal domain. It was then applied to the area around Luri, present-day Luoyang, during the Eastern Zhou and then to China's central plain before being used as an occasional synonym for the state under the king. It was often used as a cultural concept to distinguish the Huaxia tribes from perceived barbarians, and was the source of the English name, Middle Kingdom. A more literary or inclusive name, alluding to the land of Chinese civilization, is Zhonghua. It developed during the Wei and Jin dynasties as a contraction of the central state of the Hu Waxia. Before the PRC's establishment, the proposed name of the country was the People's Democratic Republic of China during the first CPEPCC held on the 15th of June 1949. During the 1950s and 1960s, after the defeat of the Kuomintang in the Chinese Civil War, it was also referred to as Communist China, or Red China, to be differentiated from Nationalist China, or Free China. History. Prehistory. Archaeological evidence suggests that early hominids inhabited China between 2.24 million and 250,000 years ago. The hominid fossils of Peking man, a Homo erectus who used fire, were discovered in a cave at Zhoucaodian near Beijing. They have been dated to between 680,000 and 780,000 years ago. The fossilized teeth of Homo sapiens, dated to 125,000 to 80,000 years ago, have been discovered in Fuyan Cave in Dao County, Hunan. Chinese proto-writing existed in Jiahu around 7000 BCE. Damaid around 6000 BCE, Daduvan from 5800-5400 BCE, and Bampo dating from the 5th millennium BCE. Some scholars have suggested that the Jiahu symbols, 7th millennium BCE, constituted the earliest Chinese writing system. According to Chinese tradition, the first dynasty was the Xia, which emerged around 2100 BCE. The dynasty was considered mythical by historians until scientific excavations found early Bronze Age sites at Erlito, Henan in 1959. It remains unclear whether these sites are the remains of the Xia dynasty or of another culture from the same period. The succeeding Shang dynasty is the earliest to be confirmed by contemporary records. The Shang ruled the plain of the Yellow River in eastern China from the 17th to the 11th century BCE. Their oracle bone script represents the oldest form of Chinese writing yet found, and is a direct ancestor of modern Chinese characters. The Shang were conquered by the Zhou, who ruled between the 11th and 5th centuries BCE, though centralized authority was slowly eroded by feudal warlords. Many independent states eventually emerged from the weakened Zhou state and continually waged war with each other in the 300-year spring and autumn period, only occasionally deferring to the Zhou king. By the time of the Warring States period of the 5th–3rd centuries BCE, there were 7 powerful sovereign states in what is now China, each with its own king, ministry and army. Imperial China. The Warring States period ended in 221 BCE after the state of Qin conquered the other 6 kingdoms and established the first unified Chinese state. King Zheng of Qin proclaimed himself the first emperor of the Qing dynasty. He enacted Qin's legalist reforms throughout China, notably the forced standardization of Chinese characters, measurements, road widths, and currency. His dynasty also conquered the Yue tribes in Guangxi, Guangdong, and Vietnam. The Qin dynasty lasted only 15 years, falling soon after the first emperor's death, as his harsh authoritarian policies led to widespread rebellion. Following a widespread civil war during which the imperial library at Zhanyang was burned, the Han dynasty emerged to rule China between 206 BCE and CE 220, creating a cultural identity among its populace still remembered in the ethnonym of the Han Chinese. The Han expanded the empire's territory considerably, with military campaigns reaching Central Asia, Mongolia, South Korea, and Yunnan, and the recovery of Guangdong and northern Vietnam from Nanyu. Han involvement in Central Asia and Sogdia helped establish the land route of the Silk Road, replacing the earlier path over the Himalayas to India. Han China gradually became the largest economy of the ancient world. Despite the Han's initial decentralization and the official abandonment of the Qin philosophy of legalism in favor of Confucianism, Qin's legalist institutions and policies continue to be employed by the Han government and its successors. After the end of the Han Dynasty, a period of strife known as Three Kingdoms followed, whose central figures were later immortalized in one of the four classics of Chinese literature. At its end, Wei was swiftly overthrown by the Jin dynasty. The Jin felt a civil war upon the ascension of a developmentally disabled emperor. The five barbarians then invaded and ruled northern China as the 16 states. The Xiaobei unified them as the Northern Wei, whose emperor Xiaowin reversed his predecessors' apartheid policies and enforced a drastic sinification on his subjects, largely integrating them into Chinese culture. In the south, the general Liu Yu secured the abdication of the Jin in favor of the Liu Song. The various successors of these states became known as the Northern and Southern dynasties, with the two areas finally reunited by the Sui in 581. The Sui restored the Han to power through China, reformed its agriculture and economy, constructed the Grand Canal, and patronized Buddhism. However, they fell quickly when their conscription for public works and a failed war with Korea provoked widespread unrest. Under the succeeding Tang and Song dynasties, Chinese economy, technology, and culture entered a golden age. The Tang Empire returned control of the western regions in the Silk Road, and made the capital Chang'an a cosmopolitan urban center. However, it was devastated and weakened by the Anshi Rebellion in the 8th century. In 907, the Tang disintegrated completely when the local military governors became ungovernable. The Song dynasty ended the separatist situation in 960, leading to a balance of power between the Song and Khatan Liao. The Song was the first government in world history to issue paper money and the first Chinese polity to establish a permanent standing navy which was supported by the developed shipbuilding industry, along with the sea trade. Between the 10th and 11th centuries, the population of China doubled in size to around 100 million people, mostly because of the expansion of rice cultivation in central and southern China, and the production of abundant food surpluses. The Song dynasty also saw a revival of Confucianism, in response to the growth of Buddhism during the Tang, and a flourishing of philosophy and the arts, as landscape art and porcelain were brought to new levels of maturity and complexity. However, the military weakness of the Song army was observed by the Joseon Jin dynasty. In 1127, Emperor Huizong of Song and the capital Bianjing were captured during the Jin-Song Wars. The remnants of the Song retreated to southern China. The 13th century brought the Mongol conquest of China. In 1271, the Mongol leader Kublai Khan established the Yuan dynasty. The Yuan conquered the last remnant of the Song dynasty in 1279. Before the Mongol invasion, the population of Song China was 120 million citizens. This was reduced to 60 million by the time of the census in 1300. A peasant named Zhu Yuanzhang overthrew the Yuan in 1368 and founded the Ming dynasty as the Hongwu emperor. Under the Ming dynasty, China enjoyed another golden age, developing one of the strongest navies in the world and a rich and prosperous economy amid a flourishing of art and culture. It was during this period that Zheng He led treasure voyages throughout the world, reaching as far as Africa. In the early years of the Ming dynasty, China's capital was moved from Nanjing to Beijing. With the budding of capitalism, philosophers such as Wang Yangming further critiqued and expanded Neo-Confucianism with concepts of individualism and equality of four occupations. The scholar official stratum became a supporting force of industry and commerce in the tax boycott movements, which together with the famines and defense against Japanese invasions of Korea, 1592–98, and Manchu invasions led to an exhausted treasury. In 1644, Beijing was captured by a coalition of peasant rebel forces led by Li Zicheng. The Chongqing Emperor committed suicide when the city fell. The Manchu Qing Dynasty, then allied with Ming Dynasty General Wu Sangui, overthrew Li's short-lived Shun Dynasty and subsequently seized control of Beijing, which became the new capital of the Qing Dynasty. End of dynastic rule. The Qing Dynasty, which lasted from 1644 until 1912, was the last imperial dynasty of China. Its conquest of the Ming, 1618–1683, cost 25 million lives and the economy of China shrank drastically. After the southern Ming ended, the further conquest of the Dzunga Khanate added Mongolia, Tibet and Xinjiang to the empire. The centralized autocracy was strengthened to crack down on anti-Qing sentiment with a policy of valuing agriculture and restraining commerce. The Heijin, Siban, and ideological control as represented by the literary inquisition, causing social and technological stagnation. In the mid-19th century, the dynasty experienced Western imperialism in the Opium Wars with Britain and France. China was forced to pay compensation, open treaty ports, allow extraterritoriality for foreign nationals, and cede Hong Kong to the British under the 1842 Treaty of Nanking, the first of the unequal treaties. The First Sino-Japanese War, 1894–95, resulted in Qing China's loss of influence in the Korean peninsula, as well as the cession of Taiwan to Japan. The Qing dynasty also began experiencing internal unrest in which tens of millions of people died, especially in the failed Taiping Rebellion that ravaged southern China in the 1850s and 1860s and the Dungan Revolt, 1862–77, in the northwest. The initial success of the self-strengthening movement of the 1860s was frustrated by a series of military defeats in the 1880s and 1890s. In the 19th century, the Great Chinese Diaspora began. Losses due to emigration were added to by conflicts and catastrophes such as the Northern Chinese Famine of 1876–79, in which between 9 and 13 million people died.